What's your overarching sense at the moment? Do you think we're going to have a GAA Inter-County Championship?
I think so, Ger. I think the decision made by the GAA yesterday, obviously public health was the priority, but I think there was a little bit of protectionism involved in the sense that it was protecting the Inter-County Championship as well. And any hope, as much as it is very faint now, that we're going to have crowds, obviously, for the start of the Championship, it doesn't look like it. Level 3, obviously, for the next 3 weeks, and the Championship falls within that 3 weeks. So I don't think we're going to see crowds, but I would imagine the hope for the GAA, as much as it's a very remote one, is that they will have crowds towards the end, the business end of the Championship, when we're getting to All-Ireland quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals. And that decision, that preemptive decision yesterday, as much as, we say preemptive, a lot of people are calling it reactionary now. It just depends on what side of the fence you're on. But that decision, I believe, was it was a tough one to take, I would imagine. But at the same time, I think I know I mentioned 8, but I think it's 11 county finals that were senior county finals that were still to be played out of 64. If you work it out like that on the island of Ireland, that's not too bad.
Obviously, it's not just the seniors as well. It's all the other games, the underage games. I know there's an under-14 final. I saw people tweeting about yesterday as well. So it has had a massive impact on clubs that have obviously had great seasons and manage things well enough to get to the point where you were, still progressing. So I can see why there would be devastation around the county or around the country. But it did also feel like in most cases, most people understood why the decision was being made.
I think so. It didn't help on Sunday night, and certainly I was peeved by it as well. That I was at the Cork final driving back up to Dublin on Sunday evening, and the last thing I saw before I got into the car was Micheál Lahan's tweet that NFIT were recommending level 5. And just as that, we were seeing the scenes, the celebrations in Blackrock, the over-exuberance. I don't think we can call it anything more than that. It was reckless as well, I should say. But there were, you look at the Meath County final, it didn't look to me like there was 200 there. It looked like there was a lot more. I think the GAA were appreciating that things were unravelling a bit. A lot of people, a few people have had digs back there at GAA in the sense that, they called out NFIT, so to speak. They looked for a meeting with Ronan Glynn. At that time, though, the GAA were controlling things. We weren't at the business end of county championships. There wasn't celebrations. It was easier to control. But as we got towards the end of these championships, things became a lot hairier. And as Alan Milton said to yourselves last night, a lot of it is out of their control. A lot of it's happening in private settings, public houses at times as well. They can't do so much about that. And human nature. I was speaking to Tracy Kennedy, the Cork chairperson, yesterday, and she was mentioning, listen, I'm not going to blame anyone for this. Human nature is human nature. But when you win a title like that, when you're, was it 64 years with Dungannon, first time for Killadangan, Crosserlock, first time in, was it 50 something years as well. Cop on goes out the window, unfortunately, and sadly they've had to make this decision. And there is criticisms, people saying that they've jumped the gun away because the government have only gone to level 3, but this had nothing to do with the government. This had to do with the GAA getting their house in order.
In some respects, that was like a PR move, and I don't mean that in the bad sense, but actually they did have to regain the narrative that they had some control over what was happening, because certainly the control had been divested in the clubs and the county boards, and they had been unable to police things in the way that they needed to, and people hadn't taken responsibility as well. I'm not saying that that's a one-way street at all. Joe did make the point, speaking to Alan Milton last night, though, that do we really expect there not to be that wild celebration in Mayo if, for example, they end their own famine? And at what point does the central responsibility trump the individual responsibility? And at what point, I'm definitely of the view that, we saw the Liverpool scenes, for example, after they won the title, in a fairly similar state, probably a worse state of lockdown. What do you do?
It's something I would imagine they closer to the time that they was be giving serious consideration to. things like Sky Sports, as we had the story this morning, that Sky Sports are making their games available on their basic packages and the Virgin packages. At least that is going to not prevent, but it's going to disencourage people from going to pubs for games, because obviously things will be a lot more available. Little moves like that, the fact that every game is available on TV, that's going to help too. We're not. I think the GAA are doing everything in their power for the time being to avoid congregations and people coming together and celebrating and commiserating and whatnot. I was speaking to a couple of inter-county managers yesterday and putting it to them off the record that what are you going to do if you win a first provincial title in so many years? What are you going to do if you win an All-Ireland title? And they're insisting, they have their own bubble, and that is, I know Alan Milton touched on it last night. The GAA do have their own bubbles. They will celebrate. I know the tradition, is usually to go back on the Monday or the Tuesday night back to the captain's club and celebrate. We're not going to have any of that this year. I think it just has to be. There's just more control, Ger, with intercounty, if from a player point of view, from a management point of view. But absolutely, Ward Mayo to bridge that famine, or to end that famine, I should say. You couldn't. It'd be very hard to control.
The pandemic, I guess, has taught us a lot of stuff, really. It's taught us about how quick it is actually possible to make decisions for the GAA centrally. I know that there was a derogation granted because of the remarkable circumstances here, but the big core lesson seems to be that a split season is inevitable and everybody has really enjoyed it. Has next year and the year after really begun to form in people's minds? Do you have any sense of what the GAA think next year and the year after are going to look like just yet, John?
Well, I think the hope was, I know from, my understanding is that the new incoming president, Larry McCarthy, was very keen on the split season coming in next season, but John Horn would probably be a little bit more au fait with what's going on right now on the ground. And would think it's a bit too ambitious. I think he's on record as saying such as well, Ger. But next year, I would imagine, is going to be a bridging season to a split season. Like I'd safely say that the club month of April is gone, especially with the Allianz Leagues starting late as is expected, because they want to give. Now, don't get me wrong, the championship, the 2020 championship, could still run into 2021, and that would have ramifications for the national leagues. But if they are to get the competition finished this year, I imagine it'll be a late February start. And what we're seeing now, I know Fergal McGill has been doing a lot of work on this, the director of games, player and club administration, doing a hell of a lot of work on it, in fairness to him, and he's looking at the possibility of provincial leagues. It hasn't been ruled out, just to make it regional leagues, for want of a better expression. Of course, that is something that is on the proposals for the football championship, in the sense that they were looking at starting, the flip structure, so to speak, that the league structure would morph into the championship, and the provincials would come back to earlier in the season and be played on a league basis then. So that might give them the opportunity to trial this in a way. But at this moment in time, they're looking at a very stripped back league. They could be, the easiest option probably would be to split the divisions into two groups of four each, so basically 8 groups across the 4 divisions, football wise. Hurling would probably be able to look after itself, but and then come the championship, because nothing has been decided. This year was supposed to be the last trial year of the Super 8. I don't think there's any appetite for the Super 8 now, from what I'm getting anyway. So what we could be looking at is the hurling championship as it is over the next few weeks, taking place over a longer period next summer, and then basically reverting back to the qualifier system, if only for next year in football, with obviously the Tailteann Cup, the B championship.
Are the regional leagues seen as an avenue to phasing provincial championships out, John, or what's the thought there?
It could be a slow death. That's it's a slow train coming, and as much as there was a hell of a lot of merit in the GPA's proposal, which would have obviously got rid of the provincial structures, I think the leadership in Croke Park realised that they have to get there slowly, and it won't be a case of completely getting rid of the championships. It'll have to be a slow death, a death by 1,000 cuts, so to speak. So basically bringing back the provincial championships to basically replacing them the leagues with them would be the start, as you said, on the start of the culling, so to speak, of the provincial championships. Now, we all know that John Horan has said that he's on record. He said it during the lockdown when he was speaking to his own club's Facebook page, that he was referred to the provincial championships as a monster. The only thing stopping the provincial championships being culled at this moment in time really are the strength of the Munster Hurling Championship, Senior Hurling Championship, and the strength of the Ulster Senior Football Championship. Now, the Connacht Football Championship has certainly been the most improved, but those are really the traditional bastions that are really, well, I won't use the word preventing, but certainly stopping if you want to call it progress. I would still be a traditionalist in the sense about Munster Hurling Championship and Ulster Football Championship, but they might have to go. They might have to be the sacred cows that are culled over the next while.
Sure. Well, there could be a situation where the Munster Hurling could stay the sacred cow and that is preserved, because the Leinster Hurling Championship hasn't been half bad either. Like that incredible Leinster Championship last year, that the only sacred cow that I think really is probably up for debate might be the Ulster Football Championship. And many people in Ulster might actually argue that it is a disadvantage to teams going into the latter stages of the championship, having been brutalised throughout the rounds of the Ulster Championship, that it might make sense for all parties. So, like, this is interesting. This could be a situation where your pre-season football competitions, your McGrath Cups, etc., could go by the wayside, because you'll have these regional leagues, and those regional leagues essentially become your provincial championships and become your teeing up competition for your main summer championship, thereby getting rid of the league weeks as well. It'd be a great competition, and it would save a hell of a lot of time on a packed calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way things are going on is that we are going to see some sort of dilution of the provincial championships, whether it's by this, basically the provinces becoming the leagues, or the 4 provincial conferences of 8. So that would mean in Ulster anyway, one county having to go to Connacht, I would imagine. And, that might be based, if that is the case, that could be based on the league. That would have appeal to a lot of people, in the sense that there would be symmetry. People would be playing at the same time. As you said yourself, Ulster counties wouldn't be at a disadvantage in a way, because as much as they are in traditionally the most competitive provincial competition, they would be playing the same amount of games as the likes of Dublin and as the likes of Kerry and Mayo. So they were okay. They might be more battle hardened by the time that they get to the All Ireland stages, but at least they would have played the same games as others. So there is merit in that provincial conference proposal as well. It's going to be very interesting. But if they do go regional leagues at the start of next year, I think they really are trialing it by stealth, if you know what I mean. That they are looking at the flip model. Now, that is, if you want to call it radical, that is certainly the most interesting of all the proposals, because basically it's flipping the league, which I think we all agree has been the most successful football competition in, and I think Tom Ryan is on record of saying that it is the most successful inter-county football competition around. So bringing that into the summer would be appetising in one way, but a little bit of there would be a bit of fear as well, because it would be complete change.
When would it have to be finished by to get the clubs enough time in summer so they feel like they got what they got this year?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jared. The 14 weeks seems very sacred. It's interesting that the CPA, Michal Brioli was saying it there recently, that the 14 weeks, they need that for county championships. And I don't believe the Club Players Association's proposal got too much consideration by the National Fixtures Review Group, because that around this time last year, almost 12 months ago, that ended quite sourly. But at the same time, the National Fixtures Group are proposing 14 weeks as well, that the club championships, the counties are given 14 weeks to complete their championships, and thereafter we would have provincial club and All Ireland club. So you work back from that. You really work back. You try and you figure out what time. Fergal McGill is on record as well, saying that the All Ireland Championships, the Intercounty Championships next year are going to be played over a more truncated period, just like we have now. Certainly not. The hope would be not to play it over such a over 49, 50 days as it is going to be the case over the next few weeks, hopefully. But yeah, next summer the portion that the All Ireland Championship has is not going to be as much, and we could be seeing July All Ireland finals next year.
Right. And so just in terms of the interprovincial club, can you go week by week? Like, is that a realistic expectation? So, and then you might have a close season even of like 6 weeks, the last 2 weeks of November and all of December off, and then everybody starts again in January. Is that potentially, or are you looking at kind of All Ireland Club hurling final early December?
I think early December is more. If you early December and then give the colleges January, that would be I think that would be the hope, Ger, that they would. It seems more realistic that they would finish at the All Ireland Club Championships, and there would be let's be honest, there would be a nice festive feel to the All Ireland Championships in Croke Park at the start of December, all of them being played there. At the same time, I know from speaking to county clubs who have been involved in All Ireland's, and the St. Patrick's Day appeal, as much as it elongates the whole thing, that break over the Christmas, being able to look forward to an All Ireland semi-final as they have done, it's a great opportunity to fundraise. It sustains the feel good factor. But I think we're beyond that now. I think the players really have to come first, the club players, and not making them wait as long as that. Really has to be the goal now. Week by week, absolutely, Jerry. I can see it definitely happening. Would be obviously you would try and give a break between provincial semi-final, a 2 week break between provincial semi-finals, club finals, semi-finals, and provincial club finals. But that I can see that definitely happening. End of October, November. Very similar to what we have now, but just ensuring that the games are played and winners on the day. I think the days of replays now are long gone, and it's not just because of the extenuating circumstances this year.
All of this sounds kind of great.
It does in a way, and this is like I would have been one of those who would have felt it was safer for the county championship, the All Irelands to have been played first. But at the same time, would the GAA have realised that the split season is the way to go? Had they gone with county first, maybe not. At the same time, they have run into difficulties now because of celebrations and whatnot. But they have come across a solution here that I think could be workable for so many people, and we've seen some fantastic championships here. It's not just the fact that we don't have replays and games have to go into extra time. I've been at the Tipperary and County hurling finals. I was at a cracker of a Kilkenny hurling semi-final as well over the last while, and they've been pure enjoyment. And people would have loved to have been there, but they got to see them in some shape or form, be it on TV or streaming, and they've been sensational. But the greatest kick is that the players really, really enjoy it. You speak to TJ Reid, you speak to Alan Flynn and Killadangan, and they're really loving the fact that they are not being brought from pillar to post. They're not, in fairness, Brian Cody is very, very good to the guys in Tipperary, as is Liam Sheedy Brian Cody in Kilkenny as Liam Sheedy in Tipperary. But at the same time, they're being asked, they don't have those dual commitments. They're focusing completely on their club and they're loving it, and I think it's a win-win situation. I think what we've had over the last while are some of the greatest club championships in a long time, and we're not looking at through rose-tinted glasses. And obviously, I think we would all question ourselves, are we reading too much into these championships and thinking just because we have Gaelic games to watch, they're better than ever? They actually are. The enjoyment has been incredible, and I think the standards are going to come up in the club championships. It helps as well that some of the structures of the championships have had to. Tipperary obviously would have longed to curtail what was a quite bloated structure, senior hurling championship structure in their county. Cork got a fabulous structure over the line this year, and I think the benefits have been there for all to see. And I just see it as a win-win situation, Joe.
Definitely. Just one other thing on this year, John, and what happens over the next few weeks, because I certainly thought that if level 5 were to come in yesterday, we would have had then 4 weeks to get over level 5, push the championship back 2 weeks, and try and compress it in even further before Christmas. My concern now is that if we do go up the phases and do get to level 5, that there will be no wiggle room for the GAA. There will be no way of playing the championships this year unless they get special dispensation to actually play the games during level 5.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Owen. I would have the exact same fears as yourself, and as that drive, as I said, from Cork to Dublin, everything was going through my head. Thinking about it and what might happen. It's the mastermind situation, isn't it? If they start, they'll finish, or so they'll finish. At the same time, we've seen the likes of the McRory Cup and the cup having to be shared by the two finalists. So there is precedent there for things not to finish. At the same time, there is precedent in that the GAA have always completed their championships. No matter what year it's been, as we know, I think we all became historians during the lockdown, but as soon as this starts on, I would imagine it has to finish, be it next year, and that might have repercussions, obviously, on the Alliance Leagues in 2021. But the championship obviously would take priority. The fact that the government, I should say, are very keen for this to be played. The fact that they have included inter-county championships up to level 4 is very positive. I think they know, I would have written about it during the lockdown, the importance of inter-county championships taking place for people's sanity and for people to have something to look forward to. Like, what are we now, 18 days or 19 days away from the start of the championship? It is exciting, people. I've had a lot of people coming on to me and criticizing me for asking me, why are you so keen for a championship to take place? But I have people onto me every day asking, they just want that bit of hope. They want something to look forward to. They know they're not going to be able to go to the games, but as we all know, the 47 games, the 30 Sam Maguire Cup games, the 17 Liam McCarthy Cup games are all going to be on TV, and that is so important for people to have that. And the government realised that as well. We're hearing, or we heard last night about NFIT and maybe not having the same sensibilities as the government to what people want, but the government have been well on tune as regards appreciating that a championship would be something to look forward to, would be something to cherish, and was something to make the winter certainly shorter than we're all expecting it to be.
So do you think that there will be special dispensation granted by the government to play a championship should it come to level 5?
I would if it starts. Yeah, I would believe that nothing else now, and they would have to put in stringent, absolutely stringent protocols and whatnot. But they have invested into this championship. They have put money behind it, 50 million, obviously, to the LGFA and the Camogie Association and to the GAA. They have invested in this. They know how much it will mean to people. So I think they realise the importance of it. Obviously, it has to be balanced up with the public health concerns, and if things do exacerbate and get worse, then there has to be a lot of considerations. But this is the tonic, and I think they realise that it is the tonic. Obviously, antidote in any shape or form, but it is the tonic, and it will distract. It will give people something to look forward to, and it'll give people something to talk about.